Hello, this is Scry.mind bringing you another Warcraft 3 audio commentary. This time I'm going to be recording the video as well, so you can see how pro I look while I'm doing the audio commentary. But this is going to be two solo games against ranked players on the Azeroth Solo Ladder. This is going to be Jake playing against these ranked players. So in the first replay, Jake is going to be random, green, on the account Old Gay Dad, for whatever, draw whatever conclusions you want about that, and his opponent is going to be In God We Trust, who's the purple elf who spawned at the top right. This is Twisted Meadows, as you can see, and Jake has spawned at the top left position. And Jake has randomed human, which I believe is going to be a slight advantage given how the game goes and the hero choice that purple goes for in this game. So Jake is going to be starting out with a troll salvo, implying his opponent is not only on welfare, but he is going to assume that he's having trouble reading dollar bills because or $100 bills because he's on welfare. But and purple is going to, of course, rage a lit's bit, but Jake's going to follow that up with a slightly personal question, ASL, which many of you may have seen on the interwebs at some point from certain types of people. So we can see that purple is going to be going for a Priestess of the Moon with Huntresses, his build, and Jake is opening with what looks to be a Rifleman build, and he's walling off his base, which is going to prove fairly effective against Huntresses. And he's going for an Archmage, which also will be pretty effective without the mana burning Demon Hunter to worry about. He'll be able to create a lot of water elementals, which are going to be strong against Huntresses. So purple he has picked his hero before he has scouted his opponent. And, you know, I would say the Priestess of the Moon, not exactly the most effective hero against human, especially in the late game. If you're going to try to transition into Druids of the Claw or anything like that, you know, you're going to be losing the effectiveness of True Shot Aura. And, yeah, so, that being said, though, Huntresses with a Priestess of the Moon can be pretty effective in the early game, especially if you can get some creepjacks in on your opponent. Because, and this again is sort of a good spawn location if Jake were going for the typical footman militia creeping of the Goblin Laboratory, purple could really run there really quickly and probably snipe some of the creeps and or militia and get some of the experience there and do a lot of damage. So, but Jake is actually going to build up a massive rifleman, and he's not going to be going for the lab. Sort of weird that purple didn't run over there to the lab and check it out, but he saw the, I believe he saw the rifle, the blacksmith, and so he probably assumed it's going to be a little bit different. So one of the strengths of Huntresses in the early game that can sort of give them an advantage against riflemen sometimes is their mobility, and at nighttime they're going to be healing up a little bit faster than units normally do. Since they're night elf, they're going to be healing at, I believe, 0.5 hit points a second as opposed to 0.25, which might seem like a slight thing, but you know, over the course of the entire night, you know, it can add up a little bit. In addition to the moon wells are going to be generating moon juice during nighttime, and but one of the other things is Huntresses are going to be able to hide, shadow meld at night, and sort of set up for these creepjacks. In addition to their mobility, so while riflemen are in a standing battle, you know, in mass are going to have the advantage over the Huntresses pretty much. You know, in small numbers, with the mobility, Huntresses, you can really sort of take advantage of kiting and hitting and running. If you get a creepjack, you can really punish the human because his riflemen are going to have a hard time. He's going to have a hard time running his riflemen back to his base or anything before they get killed. Whereas the Huntresses have the faster move speed, or fast move speed, so they will, and shadow meld, so they're going to be able to sort of easier to micro them back and run, so you can avoid taking losses. Now Jake is wisely going to avoid this green camp, seeing as how purple has set up shadow meld everywhere, and he went into this fog area and he gave purple the slip, which is going to prove to be incredibly effective strategy.
he's not going to be going for any of the typical creep camps. He's going to be totally sort of countering Purple's mobility advantage and countering his aggressive playstyle by creeping something really far out of the way, which is going to be this gold mine right here. And he's also going to be bringing these militia, which Purple is not quite. He's going to have vision of one of the militia for like a split second. I don't know if he even actually saw that. It was for such a short time. But again, he only saw the one militia, so he might just assume that's a scout or something, or anything else. But it turns out Jake is down here at this gold mine, and the fact that Purple didn't follow that militia kind of suggests he may have just missed it. Notice that Jake is putting out some scout farms to sort of see, you know, advanced warning if the elf player is going to be over there going for this gold mine or something like that. And he's got these towers up in the wall and some of these riflemen, so his base is going to be pretty much impenetrable to this harass. Notice that Purple has no idea where Green is. He's really sort of wasting all kinds of time right now, which is letting him, his mobility advantage, really slip away. Jake is going to be getting level 2 quickly. He's also going to quickly get level 3. And he's going to do so without getting harassed at all, which is very, very important in this matchup, getting level 3 on the Archmage, especially against Huntresses, but just in general, level 2 water elementals are incredibly strong, especially before the opponent gets any sort of dispel, which in this case would be abolish magic on dryads, or sort of aggressive use of wisps is one way to do it. To counter the water elementals, though that is going to put a ding in your wood economy if you start detonating a bunch of wisps. It's really sort of a last-ditch effort sort of a situation. Even though wisps are only 60 gold, 60 gold is for a free water elemental is kind of the human sort of wins that advantage maybe. Now notice Green is being very, very aggressive creeping in his camp with only the 3 units. He's going to take a lot of damage, and if Purple were to come upon him right now, that would be very bad. He'd probably lose 1, maybe even 2 of these riflemen as he continues. Now he's in a spot where he could lose even more than just 1 or 2. He might lose all 3. Anyway, sadly for Jake, Purple actually wisp scouted this expansion. He finally was able to track down Jake's attempts to expand, and that power build expansion was pretty far along, so that was a big resource swing finding that before it finished. Jake says nice hack, which is a little bit ironic looking back. I don't know if he's just trolling the guy or not. He actually did wisp scout that, and the fact that Jake was able to creep like several creep camps and get in red without getting harassed sort of suggests this guy clearly doesn't hack. Either that or he's really silly about what he does with his vision. But at any rate, we see that Purple is gone up to tier 3 and is making Druids of the Claw, which is really weird to go with Preachers of the Moon. Though typically Druids of the Claw are sort of the in-game strategy against human, especially if they have decided to mass Riflemen, because nothing else is really that great of a counter to Riflemen in terms of elf units, maybe Mountain Giants. Huntresses aren't really good against them in mass. Dots, Druids of Talon, Dryads, Hippogriff Riders, Chimera, nothing really is that good against them except for Bears. Bears, they have a lot of hit points. They have the Roar and Rejuvenation. And, they're the tier 3 melee unit, so they're really sort of the perfect unit against Riflemen, especially without any kind of caster unit. Now, we'll take a look here. Jake is deciding to do a tower push right now. He's got a massive units, and the elf only has 38 food, so Jake is, he's got a slight food advantage, and the fact that he's level 3 is going to go a long way, and he's got this pendant of energy. So he tries to tower back here, but not very effective. He just loses those, loses the peasant there, but he does draw the army back there, and meanwhile he's going to, he managed to cancel the second lore, and he really had a great timing push here, because any longer on any later, if he were to wait, that second lore would have gotten up. That's 4 ancients. He could have had another 2 bears, and that expansion was going to start kicking in because it's just now finishing. So it could have started to kick in and once he got a certain amount of bears, you know, that could have easily overwhelmed these riflemen. Now the watchtowers or the guard towers here are going to give him give the elf sort of a window where he either has to win or he's going to face, you know, sort of an unsurmountable disadvantage in terms of having these towers right in the middle of his base. Some of the things he could have did differently, again, the hero choice, he had to operate, he did operate without knowledge of his opponent's race. He didn't scout before Jake got, or before he picked the Priestess of the Moon, so sort of, you know, against random, it sometimes will behoove you to scout earlier than normal because you know, you're going to want to know what kind of strategy you can go, or you might, you know, find yourself in sort of with a bad hero in the end, again, this Priestess, and again, also running around for so long, put him at a level disadvantage, so it sort of rolled out of control for him. And Jake had really good timing. Again, another few minute difference in this push. Could have been a totally different outcome even with the Priestess of the Moon. So bravo for the champ on that one. As Jake likes to say, that's why he's the champ. But anyway, you know, one other thing the elf could have utilized, you know, sort of a desperation, since losing this battle was going to be the end of the game. Again, a little bit later, and it may give purple a few more options as far as trying to maybe base trade or you know, just react to this differently, sort of regroup, maybe wait for some more bears or something. But again, he pretty much had to fight this battle, and he was pretty much gonna lose it almost assuredly. The one difference is he maybe should have grabbed these wisps and mass detonated on Jake's hero. That would have at least taken these big water elementals out of the game, which a lot of people will call them water tauren, especially at level 3. They're not level 3 yet, but again, and also maybe if it had Nature's Blessing, then he could have, you know, his Ancients of War could have functioned as a sort of extra melee. They would have been pretty strong if he'd uprooted them and had 7 armor. But again, he didn't, and so, you know, that push was pretty decisive. And now you notice the units killed, the hero levels hugely different, and yeah, so that was how that game went, and that was a level 33 at the time solo player, according to what I named the replay, which was probably based on what Jake said, since I doubt I actually checked that. It could have been like, oh, rank 2 elf, and I would have just probably assumed, but maybe, but I have seen that guy before, so I'm pretty sure he's at least top 40 player. But here's a rank 10 elf that Jake plays, and once again, Jake is green and random, and his opponent is elf. This time Jake is going to draw elf, so it's an elf mirror match on 2 rivers. It goes sort of an odd way in terms of this beginning here. Now this red's gonna, as opposed to the previous guy, red is going to scout before he is going to get his altar finished. So he will know what his opponent's race is before he chooses his hero, which can be useful. It's always important to scout. A lot of times in solo, players will sort of delay the scout a little bit, so they'll have maybe because they will get you know, let their opponent will have their production buildings going up, so they will maybe get a little more clear picture. Even though you can just let your scout sit over there and rescout pretty easily with elf. But so red's gonna go for an Ancient of War harass. This used to be very common. I think it maybe has fallen out of favor. Maybe, I don't know. I don't honestly play quite enough solo to keep abreast of the trends there. But and again, typically the goal of this is to really just slow the opponent down, keep them from creeping and massing quite as quickly. And a lot of times it'll be a covered attack, sort of distract the opponent and tech up, so you can take advantage of a tavern hero or dryads and such. But on this map, there isn't a tavern, so teching isn't quite as advantageous, since you're not going to have instant access to an instant hero at tier 2. You're going to be stuck with racial heroes, which are probably going to be either Keeper of the Grove or Priestess of the Moon. I wouldn't say Warden will be very strong, especially against Huntresses at level 1, and against a Demon Hunter, which is what Jake is going. So both players going Demon Hunter. Demon Hunter is probably going to be the best choice for this kind of harass, because Demon Hunter
you know, with a few Demon Hunter against any other hero is pretty much going to be a slight. At least elf heroes are pretty much going to favor the Demon Hunter. And so again, you know, if you have a Keeper of the Grove and say Red had a Keeper of the Grove and Jake had a Demon Hunter, he's not really going to be able to do too much damage that way. So they're both going to fight here. Jake's way to counter this is throw up another Ancient of War and is just going to mass archers. Red sort of made the mistake here. He did not eat a tree, so he's not gaining any of the hit points back as these archers are damaging him, which is going to prove to be a pretty important mistake for him. Now, usually the Entangled Goldmine is not the best target because you can repair it for free, essentially, except for the Lost Harvest time. Usually, you're going to want to get shots on archers, the Demon Hunter, if you can. Notice he did get a few shots on him, or any Moon Wells that are going up, or another Ancient of War, or Hunter's Hall. You know, anything that can really, you know, you can maybe get a cancel, or get a hero kill here. So, but Jake is he's getting these archers, and Red, you know, was slow to heal to eat a tree. So he really put himself in a bind here, and he blocked his own Demon Hunter. And now he's gonna eat a tree, but a little too late here. So he's put himself in a really bad spot. 160 gold for the Ancient of War, 170 for reviving the hero. He lost a lot of time in terms of production, and he's going to lose a lot more waiting to revive this hero, and also the 60 wood for the Ancient of War, and the hero experience that he's given up is going to allow green to get a level advantage, which is going to be a pretty big deal as the game gets to the later stages. Just putting him, you know, one level over Red's Demon Hunter is going to give him, you know, it's usually going to give him an extra, you know, a doubly strong mana burn, you know, in terms of from level 1 to level 2, and yeah, along with the extra hit points and everything else. So, and again, we all know how crazy Metamorphosis is. So, you know, once you start letting your opponent get near level 6 with a Demon Hunter, then it really sort of becomes a different game. You know, you get in danger of just a huge kind of flipping the script once the Demon Hunter gets level 6 for Metamorphosis, especially without a Naga to sort of kind of keep him from going bananas with that. But as it is, Red's going to go ahead and switch to Huntresses. As you see, 2 Ancients of War, and maybe did that because there's no tavern, and so he wouldn't be quite as strong at tier 2 as maybe he otherwise would. And meanwhile, Jake is also going to add some Huntresses here. Red was in his base and he saw Hunter's Hall going up for Jake, so he probably could assume that you know, Jake might be adding some Ballista or Huntresses, and so Red needed to be ready for some sort of early game push. If he wasn't, he probably would have been in some trouble potentially. But what happens is Jake is actually going to go for a fast expand, and his opponent is going to do a push, which a lot of times is going to favor the aggressive player, you know, if the timing works out. But since the early game was so poor for Red, and he's going to make protectors, and he's not going to be out in front of them, so that's just going to be a lot of lost resources right there, which is sort of lucky on Jake's part, but again, a bad play on Red's part as well. That probably would have been very effective if he would have, you know, if Jake wouldn't have ran right into those, and he would have been in front of them. Since Jake actually doesn't currently have any Ballista, and his expansion is not quite paying off yet, so, you know, Protector's getting up, and then him adding in some Ballista from his main, you know, could have been, you know, could have made this a totally different outcome. But now Jake is going to get a little bit out of position here, but I notice level 3 against level 2 right now is advantage Jake because, as I said, level 2 mana burn twice as much as level 1, and notice he already has extra hit points, and you know, Red doesn't have any mana left, so he's pretty much going to be fighting an uphill battle here. Now he's going to basically sacrifice Huntresses to take out these Protectors.
he's in kind of a bind. This is not really a great fight for him because while he's trading units, you know, not totally bad. Once that expansion gets up, you know, trading units is going to favor Jake because he can easily replace them. And again, losing the units is going to help him stay out of upkeep. So, and he already has the hero level advantage. So, he knows just how close he is to level 3. That is huge. And meanwhile, Jake is that much closer to level 4. So, you know, trading off and Jake getting leveled up is sort of gonna give him the edge because it's gonna limit what Red can do. Red actually hasn't finished teching yet. And Jake has already got the sort of foresight to add Ballista, which again is going to sort of neutralize or mitigate Red's slight tech advantage, even though it still is a little slow since he was trying that Protector push. Ballista are good against Archers, Huntresses, and Dryads and Druids of the Talon, so and pressing bases and you know, Protectors if there are any. So you know, this is kind of an odd matchup. Whereas, you know, I'm not gonna say Elf don't need to tech, but you know, if you have Ballista, the Dryads are not going to be nearly as useful. Again, it's going to allow you to push if you catch your opponent out of his base. And again, you know, the only thing that can really beat Ballista is bad positioning. If you can get your Huntresses around them. But on this map, you can really play around that if you get a Zeppelin, which you're going to see a little bit later. But one thing Ballista can do, regardless of what's going on, is you know, if you're trying to defend your main or a towered expansion, or just an expansion in general, Ballista are gonna be really great at defense because you can have them behind buildings and everything, and they can take advantage of their range. Whereas they're not going to be able to take advantage of the Ballista mobility to get to them, especially if you got Protectors up, as you saw. Fighting that would have just been suicide for Red. The Protectors alone would have already made it sort of a bad idea to press there. But again, his options are sort of limited since he's behind on the expansion. Maybe he thought that Jake didn't rebuild the Protectors, but it turns out he did. And yeah, so the Ballista make, you know, defending incredibly easy, and attacking with Huntresses, you know, it's not really going to work. So again, Jake has pretty much solidified his advantage here, and he's really putting Red into a no-win situation. Notice Red is finally going to throw up some Ancients of Lore, and Jake is almost he's slowly teching up here and putting up some Protectors. Notice he has moved his Ancient of War over here to more of a forward spot, so his base is really set up well. Jake's is, you know, harassing with hunts, really not really an option. These Protectors here, and the Tree of Life is, he's behind these Moonwells, and meanwhile these Ancients of War are, you know, they're up in the front, and they're sort of walling off the base, but not totally, so he can move his Ballista kind of at will around in there, as well as the Huntresses. So he's pretty much safe from any sort of aggression right here. So meanwhile, Red has decided to pull back on the aggression, add a Priestess of the Moon to get a True Shot, which is kind of act like another unit upgrade, attack upgrade for his whole army, minus his Demon Hunter. But and he's gonna try to throw up this expansion, but the timing is not really favorable to this because he's already behind in terms of economy. Jake's is towered, so you know, Jake is probably going to be looking to push him pretty soon. It's going to be hard for him to hold that, even with Dryads, because he's already got all these Ballista. So notice he's going to get a Creep Jack here, which is going to be favorable, though it's not going to be game deciding. I think Jake's going to lose one Ballista and maybe a Huntress, but he's pretty much finished creeping this. He grabbed the Zeppelin. I don't know if he actually did lose a hunt. Maybe he didn't, so he just lost that Ballista. But he pretty much finished the camp. Notice he's a little bit over level 4. His opponent is on, you know, it's about halfway, maybe a little more than halfway to level 4. But he's got this expansion up, and JB13.
has his expansion up. He's got a Zeppelin, which is going to be pretty effective at keeping these ballista alive. As far as what Red could do differently here, you know, Dryads aren't bad, but in terms of trying to push towered bases and having all these ballista already, you know, you probably should have just added ballista, honestly, with that Priestess of the Moon. Or alternatively, you could have tried to transition into Hippogriff Riders, because notice Green still doesn't, his army doesn't contain any anti-air units right now. He's just got ballista and huntresses and a demon hunter with no orb. So while he couldn't really do too much damage to the bases, he could probably make Jake move these protectors by harassing this entangled gold mine, maybe harass the wisps a little. But really what he could have did was, if he got enough, he could have sort of gotten map control and prevented Jake from pushing at this moment, maybe, if the timing worked out. I'm not really sure. It would have been sort of tough to transition with no archers into Hippogriff Riders, but, you know, it could have been done, since he had the 2 Ancients of War at some point, but but anyway, he did not do that. You know, that maybe could have been an option. While it wouldn't have immediately won him the game, it could have given him a little bit more leeway as far as keeping his expansion and sort of stabilizing and maybe trying to get it back to even. Now he's going to add some Druids of the Claw for rejuvenation, which is pretty decent, but again, you know, with a True Shot, they're not really benefiting from True Shot, and since most of his army has just gotten killed, these bears by themselves without mastery, which he's not quite tier 3 yet, they're not going to be strong enough to get Jake out. And with all these huntresses, he's going to need a lot of bears to really fight. You know, 1 or 2 bears is not going to do it. The mobility of the huntresses and everything, they're not really a counter per se to huntresses. So yeah, so he's losing these protectors. Now Jake's attack is stalled out a little bit thanks to the healing, Red's healing and everything, and I think Jake is sitting on about 400 gold here. But you know, Red isn't really mining from this expansion right now, and thanks to the Zeppelin, he is going to be able to. You know, Red might be trying to should try to get some shots on the Zeppelin with his Demon Hunter with Orb and Priestess of the Moon. And but now he is finally. But you know, with the Zeppelin, Jake is going to be able to sort of have free reign to really harass this. And yeah, so Jake is still pretty much got this game locked up. I would say, you know, he is like 60% to level 6, which is getting in sort of the danger zone, as it were. Gonna fly right into that danger zone. But anyway, like an ace. So if he hits level 6, that's pretty much gonna be a good game, unless, you know, Red hits level 6 also or something. There's not a whole lot he can do to counter Metamorphosis, unless he can maybe get his detonate and mana burn Jake's Demon Hunter before he casts Metamorphosis. That's really the only option he has at that point to even try to fight him. But as you see, you know, Jake has about 70 food and Red is sitting at about 40. So this next attack is not looking too good for him. Jake has all these ballista. He could really, if he wanted to, he could really Zeppelin harass this this expansion down, probably without losing anything, I would guess, especially since Red isn't even close to it. And again, that's sort of the advantage of Zeppelins on this map. But Jake's decided to go for a different approach. He's gonna go right for the front door, kick it open, you know, and be like, you know, what's up? I'm the champ. Here's my belt. You know, do the people's elbow. Do you smell what my Flameseeker Demon Hunter is cooking? And he's hit level 3, and he said cue up the heavy metal, and I'm assuming that's what he was thinking, something like that. And so this demonic figure appears on the map and just is about to enforce his crazy will on the opposing Demon Hunter. kind of ironic. A demon hunter against a full-fledged demon there. Well, yeah, I forgot to look at the score screen just then, but I've looked at it earlier, and you know, that expansion I don't believe had you know, I don't believe it had been that huge of a, in terms of gold mine difference, because Jake suffered about 2,000 gold worth of penalty for upkeep, which sort of goes along with amassing an army really quick and also having the extra gold mine full of wisps. Kind of hard to stay under upkeep if you want to try to be aggressive after that, and so I think he only mined about 2,400 more gold than his opponent or something like that. So really it was only about a 500 gold difference in terms of gold mined, and you know, in terms of the cost of the expansion and the extra wisps and the wood cost and the protector cost, and Red got another hero, so you know, it may be, you know, in terms of, you know, how that gold translated into you know, army difference. You know, clearly at the end of the game, Green was able to field the larger army. I think at the max army size, he had about 20 more food than his opponent, even though he only had the one hero. And again, some of that's going to be wisps for the gold mine, but even still, Andy spent like about 480 gold on Zeppelins. But you know, what the expansion really did was it really sort of forced Red to fight sort of a playstyle that Jake could take advantage of. It was to Jake's advantage, because the Huntresses Red had were not going to be good enough to, you know, they weren't strong enough to push through protectors, especially with Ballista and Huntresses backing them up and everything else with good positioning. And again, he couldn't pressure Jake's main, so he was really limited options there. He either had to try some crazy like Hippogriff Riders and do something, you know, pretty crazy to turn the game and sort of get back into it, or you know, counter expand himself, which is what he ended up doing. But again, you know, Jake was already ahead in terms of gold mined and everything, and as you saw, you know, he was able to really slow up Red's attempt to do that, taking out the protectors, wiping armies, and then unit trades really for a long portion of that game favored Jake, especially since his hero was a solo hero and he was already one level ahead of his opponent. So you know, trading units until he got to level 6 was actually a really good strategy. And as you saw, you know, that ultimate, the Demon Hunter ultimate, is one of the most effective in the game. It doesn't really rely on any sort of special circumstances to be effective. You don't need a bunch of corpses. You know, you don't need to be able to say for the Phoenix, you know, certain situations, hit and run with the Phoenix, or you know, a lot of, you know, tier 3 melee or something like that. You know, it's just a really strong ultimate against armies, against buildings. He gets chaos damage and you know, a ton of extra hit points, and ranged attacks, splash damage, can hit air, you know, all that good stuff. So you know, immediately it turned a battle that, you know, maybe it wasn't as terrible as Red would think, you know, but once you get the metamorphosis, even a close battle, even a battle with when you have an advantage, you know, if that Demon Hunter has a lot of hit points, you're just gonna have to run from it nearly every time. You know, it's gonna be very hard to fight through a metamorphosis Demon Hunter in a lot of cases. So again, that expansion really sort of put Jake, you know, put him at an advantage in terms of taking away his opponent's sort of options on what he could do. You know, he couldn't, you know, he wanted to be aggressive, but the protectors, you know, were going to stop him from taking the expansion out. So it was like a big target on the expansion, but you know, he wasn't going to be able to press it down. His early game was so bad, you know, it really put him behind the 8 ball in terms of in terms of stopping that expansion. So, you know, maybe he should have. And Jake got a really good item. He got a Roar Scroll and Boots of Agility from that camp, which really also helped him later in the game. But, you know, Red might have been better off to creep his expansion before pressing to have a similar level Demon Hunter. So, hopefully those games showed you some, in the commentary with them, showed you some tricks, gave you a little bit of insight onto those matchups. Again, with random, it sort of changes things up. You know, you might want to scout earlier to prevent yourself from sort of choosing maybe the wrong hero, and sort of know what your opponent's going to do before you sort of commit to some strategy. And yeah, you know, the Ancient of War harass, it can go bad, as you saw. That was pretty much as bad as it can go. So hopefully you learned something from that, and yeah, you could have some insight into how to play against certain things and what you can do if your opponent does sort of a rush with Ancient of War and fails hard on that map. You know, you can maybe emulate Jake a little bit and become a champion. So anyway, Scry.mind signing out.